Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time again. Alright, welcome to the Zyori Breakdown, guys. We have a very special episode today. We are here, episode number 16. You can take these headphones off now. Don't need them. Absolutely don't need them. We have a special guest today. We are going to be bringing on Fntc Era here in just a couple of minutes. Of course, we haven't had a breakdown in, I guess, a week and a half now. I think we skipped the last three. Dream Han has been a killer, but we're going to bring him back. I'm finally done with school. Had my last exam yesterday. One more take-home exam to go. Then after that, I am all set. So we are going to be back on track as far as esports stuff is concerned. Like I said, today we have a very exciting episode. One of the reasons I've been delaying the breakdown, partially because of scheduling and also because I really wanted this episode to start. To start off like kind of the return. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be modeled after that Jungling 101 we did with Trademark Esports. Z-Freak, of course, kind of, I guess, highly acclaimed is the best breakdown, if you will. Certainly the most viewed by kind of a big margin. So we're going to follow in the same footsteps and today do kind of a carry 101. Look at some agility heroes, a couple of those intellect heroes we've been talking about. And, of course, Fntc Era is going to join us today. So plenty on the schedule to get through. I have 4 pages worth of notes that I'm hoping to get through in about an hour, hour and a half. So without much further ado, let's go ahead and get into it and introduce our guest. So Fntc Era, my friend, how are you feeling today, sir?
I am feeling really well, mate. And you?
I'm feeling great. Like I said, I'm finally done college for the most part, so for me this is like freedom at last. I've been in school for the past 20 years of my life, so I'm actually feeling pretty damn chipper today. I'm very excited. So before we get too serious about this carry stuff, I just want to ask you about kind of what you've been up to recently. Your team, of course, Fntc Raid Call, been spending a little more time in Dota 2 recently, and with that announcement of Dream Han, what are you guys been spending your time? Obviously, you don't have to participate in the EU qualifier as you're going to be at the returning champs at DreamHack this summer. So are you guys still practicing Dota 2 a lot or putting more time into Han?
Well, we've had almost 3-4 weeks of downtime, actually. Like in both of the games, I haven't been scrimming at all. Just watching streams, to be honest. Not really been pubbing or anything. And now we're getting back to it, getting to a scrimming schedule in Dota. And then as DreamHon closes, we're gonna boot camp and prepare for that. So that's pretty much what I've been doing lately.
Awesome. Very awesome. So, I mean, are you guys looking forward to it? Are you guys really pumped about Dream Han? Do you think this is going to be what the scene needs to kind of get it back on track and, you know, allow Han to compete with Dota 2, or are you guys still a little pessimistic?
Well, I still think that Han is the better game, for sure. And it was really sad to see, like, when Han went down like in the darkness and just no tournament to play, and but now with Dream Han and small announcements of Han Tour, it's looking pretty good, and I'm really excited about Dream Han.
Yeah, me too, and I'm glad you kind of pointed that out, that one of the things, at least you believe, and I think quite a few members on Fntc Raid Call, is that Han actually is the better game, and that transition into Dota 2 is mostly more maybe a professional decision, where there's a more vibrant scene and more activity, more so than we'd much rather be playing Dota 2 than Han right now.
Yeah, pretty much. I've never, maybe you didn't know, but I never really played Dota 1, so It was quite the hard switch for me, but I got used to it in time, and yeah, I still like Dota, of course, but Han is just it just feels like me when I play it.
Yeah, definitely. I can understand that. I sort of feel the same way. I mean, I played Dota 1 a little bit, but I know exactly what you mean. So how did you get into the MOBA genre in that case? I mean, almost 99% of the time when I interview a kind of a pro MOBA player, they say, yeah, you know, I played Dota 1 a little bit. So how did you get into it? How were you first introduced?
It all started off when I was, how old was I? I think I was 14. Yeah, 14. And my friends introduced me to this game, Heroes of Nearth, that they have started to play at LANs and stuff. And I was pretty pessimistic because I played a lot of World of Warcraft back in the day. And I was really into that. But then as I started playing, I actually started to enjoy it really, really much. And then it just took a huge step out of the ladder and grew far off my friends, so to say.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I played a fair bit of World of Warcraft in my day, so I can understand at least. I mean, Han is a lot different, and it's sort of more fun in its own right, but also a little more stressful, I guess you could say. But yeah, so that's very cool, man. Well, that's definitely a little bit interesting, kind of a different path. And I guess along those same lines, I mean, when you first got into it, were you always sort of attracted to that carry role? Or maybe before we get to that question, would you even consider yourself to be a carry player? Do you think those roles sort of still apply in our current metagame?
Well, I started off with playing support a lot actually, because of course I wasn't that skilled when I started.
Right.
So I supported my friends, or well, I thought I did supporting. At least I bought wards, and I died a bit, but I was proud of myself. But then the more I played, the more I started to like going solo and having those extra levels, a little bit more of gold, and taking over the game by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's pretty much how I got into the whole carry thing, solo. And
Right.
yeah, I would pretty much consider myself as a carry player, especially with the roles now in Fnatic, with Hani and No-Tail.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have a little bit more of that traditional setup, but I actually had sort of a casual poll on Facebook and just said, who would you guys consider to be the best carry player that's currently active in the scene? And a lot of people replied with that sort of, well, that's hard to say because right now in our current metagame, it's not based around that one hard carry that you get really farmed. We see a lot of teams running lineups with no agility, really no intellect carry by any means. So a lot of people say that doesn't really apply, and I was kind of curious, do you think that still does apply? Is Fnatic one of the only teams that still has fairly strict rules where, for example, you would play a carry hero, maybe Nova's going to support? Do you think those sort of rigid roles still apply in general, or is it just Fnatic?
Well, every player still has its own role.
Mm-hmm.
At least I think so. Though, like in Fnatic, of course, we have pretty much always me on carry, No-Tail solo, and Hani on his solo, and then Fly utility, jungler, whatnot. But we always are able to switch up, like depend on heroes. Like let's say we get a Soul Stealer, then they put me on the Soul Stealer instead of No-Tail.
Mm-hmm.
We have a Polywog, he plays a Polywog, and so on and so forth. But
Right.
yeah, every team has, and their members got their own role.
I see.
At least I think so.
So do you ever go back to your roots and support anymore, or is it just all about carry for you at this point in your career?
I play support if I know that the other carry player in my team can do well. That's when I play support.
I see. So does that ever happen with Fnatic? I mean, when you guys scrim, do you ever role swap? That sounds a little kinky, but I mean, do you guys ever, just have fun in the scrims or whatever, or is that not so frequent these days?
It happens, but it's not too often. If it happens, it's much more in scrims. Like when Nova, for instance, wants to play carry, then I'm like, okay, you can take the carry. I play support this one. That is no problem. But when it more comes to the serious now, we usually have our stick to our roles.
Yeah, that's sort of what I expected, but that's cool though. That it sort of reminds me of a good analogy that comes to mind is like a band where sometimes the guitarist is like, "Oh, let me play drums today. I'm just feeling it, guys. You can be lead singer today. Don't worry about it." It's kind of funny though. So anyhow, sort of on that same point, along with that Facebook poll, is obviously the metagame has changed quite a bit over the last 2 years or so since Han has been around. What are you thinking about that traditional hard carry role? I mean, we certainly don't see Dark Ladies. We still see Mage Bane a lot, but we don't really see Dark Ladies nearly as much as we used to, and at least in my mind, I remember the time when it was all about whoever could pick Kronos and just turtle, get Kronos as farmed as possible till he just becomes unstoppable. That isn't really the meta right now. There's much more incentive to push, a lot more gank-oriented heroes. So what do you think? I mean, are hard carries still viable? Just talk to me about the current state of those kind of heroes.
Hard carries are of course still viable, but the thing is that people have actually learned how to play against them.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, if a team plays Mage Bane a lot, and people they know that you can just push against the Mage Bane. You take the outer towers, he has no space to farm, he can't really breathe. Mm-hmm. That's when you can take control over the game. That's why you don't see hard carry too often these days, because it's rather risky. Mm-hmm. Especially in this current metagame, as some people would say, with a lot of tanks, a lot of push, things like that. But it can still be picked up, especially if you know that the game is going to last long. And then, of course, there are some of the strongest heroes in the game.
Mm-hmm. I see. So it's still viable, just maybe a little more situational than it used to be, perhaps.
Yes, I would say so.
Yeah, there you go. So, along those same lines as well, right now I'm just sort of trying to gather a more clear scope of how you define a carry, because there's a lot of debate. I know, I'm one of those casters that spends a lot of time reading chat while casting, and I hear a lot of people sort of try and correct me sometimes if I say, oh, he's going to hard carry with Puppet, and then there's always that one guy that says, oh, Puppet's not a carry, and and then there people go, oh, Luna a carry? No, she's a semi-carry. How do you draw the line? I mean, do you differentiate between maybe carries, semi-carries, and hard carries? Are they all kind of one and the same, and it depends on the game? Or, I don't know, just fill in some of that gray area for me.
It all depends, first of all, of your lineup. Let's say you have two farmers in the game. Let's say you have a Valkyrie Magnus lane, then the Valkyrie farms. The meantime, you have a Monarch, let's say Forsaken Archer, then the Forsaken farms. In this case, Forsaken Archer would be the hard carry and Valkyrie the semi-carry, because Forsaken Archer needs more farm than a Valkyrie would do and can easily take over the game with that farm.
Right.
Much easier than the Valkyrie. But if you now have a lineup with only one of these agility heroes, let's say Valkyrie, then she is the hard carry of the team, because she takes more of the farm and will be that late game canon that you so to say.
I see. So it's not necessarily the hero, but what kind of farm and position that hero gets within the game that really makes that a clear definition.
Yep, I would say so.
I see. All right, very interesting. I've actually never really thought about it quite in that light, but that makes pretty solid sense. Along the same lines as well, is there a big differentiation between intellect carries and agility carries? I know, again, thinking back maybe a year or something when those melee hard carries were the way to go, intellect carries were a little bit more of a joke. But now, I mean, we've seen some pretty serious Puppet Master and Aluna games are the two that come to mind right off the top of my head of just intellect heroes that, I mean, if they get stacked early on, get a little bit of free farm, they can, by all means, take over a game. Obviously, item builds aside, is there a kind of a clear dividing line between those two different types of carries?
Well, Aluna is it's pretty hard to, well, Aluna is not the same kind of carry as Puppet is, because Puppet Master has a passive that scales into the late game, Whiplash, that actually gives you the crit that scales with items, while Aluna does not have that passive ability, but she is way stronger towards the early mid game because of her nukes and her stun and her extra potential of mobility, while Puppet Master actually requires at least an item, let's say Shroud in this case, to actually move around and put up kills.
I see. So, okay, that makes sense. That sort of, I always say that just because I know Aluna was buffed not that long ago as far as her auto attack speed, and since then, occasionally, not too often, but occasionally we'll see an Aluna who does take over, and eventually level 25 is just unbelievably strong. But I think you make a good point that Puppet Master sort of is a little bit of an outlier as far as, yes, he's an intellect hero, but it's really that passive that has nothing to do with intellect that makes him kind of the carry that he is, which of course we are going to take a look at Puppet Master later on. We're going to look at 3 heroes today, and Puppet Master is one of them, so we can talk all about Puppet Master and the things he brings to the table later on for sure. So next on my list here, I wanted to ask you about melee carries versus ranged carries. Where are we in this meta right now? It seems ranged carries are kind of the way to go. We see Silhouette, Valkyrie, Forsaken Archer fairly frequently, especially compared to the rates that we see, these traditional melee carries, your Mage Banes, your Dark Ladies, etc. What do you think?
Well, range carries suits better in the current meta game, I would say, because, as I said, it's a lot more push rather than sit back and farm. Because melee carries usually are the ones with the stronger passives, or those always the one that will get out more auto attacks and stuff like that in a fight, rather than a range carry. If you have, let's say, a Dark Lady in one team and then you have a Forsaken Archer in the other, the team with the Forsaken Archer can push and can push really fast with the heroes, while as Dark Lady, if you push too much, you actually get no farming space. And if you sit back and don't push at all, your team won't really have the farm, but only your hero will have the farm. And that's why at the moment you see more range carries, because melee carries needs way more space, I would say.
Okay,
they can't just jump in and think they'll survive. While range carriers can actually just stand outside and just be a bit patient with their items and chill a bit.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense as well. I mean, would it be too bold of a statement to say that it's a little bit safer to run a ranged carry these days, maybe a little bit easier to execute and just less risky in general than trying to mix in? Again, Dark Lady is just my go-to example. In my mind, she's kind of like the hardest carry, at least that we see in the competitive scene, so I guess maybe I'm overusing that example. But I mean, would that be too bold of a statement, or do you think that's kind of accurate?
I think you're pretty like right on top there actually, because yeah, as I said, range carries can just suits better at the moment when you push, and they don't really require too much space and not too much farm either. While a melee carry would much rather have like 600 GPM, and the rest of the team can sit around 200, while a range carry can just sit on that 350, 400 and still be very useful, and have the team around the similar 250, 300.
I see.
Scales better.
Yeah, that makes sense as well. So yeah, I guess that also, it sort of lowers that pressure as far as, okay, if this Dark Lady doesn't achieve, this massive farm that you were just mentioning, she's not going to be maximum effective. But a Valkyrie, like you said, if you're sitting on 300, you can still have a really strong role, at least in that stage of the game. So that's another good qualifier that we could look at. So just out of personal preference, current metagame aside, whatever meta that you want to have this scenario in, who's your absolute favorite carry hero of all time?
I'll have to say Puppet Master, actually.
Really? And why is that?
Because I think that the hero is just far better built up than other heroes. Like, there's a reason why his intelligence is because he has his spells, of course, good CC, a good, very hard nuke, ultimate, but it requires some mana, and he scales so well with a cheap stick, health flower, and just those kind of items. He's just so awesome, especially if you get a shroud and you can just pick up solo kills. Meanwhile, you farm. Yeah, it's just awesome. The hero is just really well made.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought Puppet was kind of a cool hero because I played in beta. I have a pre-order account. I remember when there really weren't that many S2 heroes. It was mostly Dota ports, and then a couple of the heroes that they had originally designed, Electrician, Puppet Master, the Dark Lady, and a few others. So, I remember back when Puppet was pretty damn strong, much more of a popular pick, I guess. So, I agree with you. I've always thought Puppet Master was sort of an interesting hero. On top of that, since we're talking about other heroes maybe that are past their prime, the two that come to mind for me as far as carries, Sandwraith and Soulstealer. What do you think about those two heroes in general? Obviously, they both kind of had their time in the limelight. There was that period of time where we saw Soulstealer a lot, and certainly the period of time we saw Sandwraith. What do you think? Do you like those heroes? Do you hate those heroes? I know Sandwraith, it seems to be a love-hate relationship for most people.
Well, I love Soulstealer, but I can't say the same about Sandwraith because he is really the best carry in the game with farm. If you would just put him, let's say, 50 minutes into the game versus any hero and his farm versus the other, he would win because he has a true damage passive that without attacks and the AoE damage that he puts out, as well as he has great mobility with his ultimate. But he just farms far too slow for me to play. Like, honestly, he requires at least a Mock of Brilliance to be able to pick up farm, and if he actually gets to that point, he can take over. But when do you see a Sandwraith take over like that? You just don't see it anymore because he has zero presence without the items and his ultimate.
Yeah. You're exactly right. You pretty much hit the nail on the head. He just has no effective farming mechanism. Like you said, that sort of Mock of Brilliance is a core item just to give him some way to farm more items. Because other than that, it's pretty much just his auto attack, which is just. You kind of build him tank oriented a lot of the time, so it's not even like his auto attack is super beefy. So it's kind of an odd thing. Along those lines as well. Think about Monkey King. I noticed Monkey King is on your top played, at least in pub games. I see some people in chat procuring about your Monkey King skills. So obviously a newer hero, an S2 hero with that. So what's your take on good old MK?
Oh, Monkey King, man. That hero. I must say that he is... I must question it a bit, like the way he's built up, because he has 3 spells, or even 4 spells that he can use to move around the map. Like huge mobility, as well as he has 3 spells that deals damage. It's always a bit questionable on a hero that has so many damaged nukes. especially since his Q spell scales with the items, because it gives dependent on base damage.
Yeah.
And he can just be so annoying and jump around and deal a lot of damage, as well as he can burst in the early game and farm really fast. I think the hero is a bit too strong in my opinion, but it's really fun to play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he is a higher skill cap hero, but one of the things that I've noticed about Monkey King, because we do see him from time to time in scrims and competitive games and stuff, and even, you know, high level just matchmaking, he sort of seems to fall off kind of early. I mean, in that early game, his burst damage is ridiculous. In the mid game as well, especially if he picks up some early items, maybe you know, nice bit of farm from those early kills, that it seems sort of a certainty that Monkey King will kill somebody before level 10. He kind of falls off, though. I don't know what it is, whether he's too squishy or it's just too easy to lock him down, or once the other team has time to stack armor, his damage output isn't there. But right around like level 15 or 16, he just kind of, I don't know, he doesn't have that sort of late game presence. Is that just my sort of lack of sampling here, or is that a real problem with this hero?
Well, you're right in a way, but I guess it depends a lot. Like, let's say public games now, for example, people don't really know how to play against such high-tier aggressive heroes. They just walk up on lanes, don't really think, and they die, and that's how a hero starts snowballing. Mm-hmm. He picks up a lot of farm and a level advantage, and that's when Monkey King starts to shine. But in a competitive game, Monkey King would, let's say he would have a decent early game, he would have some farm on the lane, but he doesn't really pick up any kills. And if he doesn't do that, he can't be the mid-late game carry you want to, because he needs a level advantage and he needs those items. Mm-hmm. And yeah, without that he can't really do much, especially since he requires enemies to be alone if he wants to kill them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's definitely true. I mean, in the 5v5 team fights, he seems to be very susceptible to AoE damage. And I picture in my head Monkey King charging in, then seeing the rave of ultimate explosions, and Monkey King just kind of ends up dead somewhere, and you're like, all right, that's great, good old Monkey King. I don't want to spend too much time on Monkey King, but I do have one other question. What are your thoughts about picking up an early Ring of Sorcery on MK as sort of a farming tool? We've seen that happen a couple times, and then seen said Monkey King usually farm the jungle and just run between the lanes, kind of spamming dash. Have you ever tried that, / is that sort of an effective farming tool on Monkey King over like a Runed Cleaver?
Well, I have never tried that myself, but I see why people would try it. Mm-hmm. But after the nerf on a Ring of Sorcery, I can't say it's worth it getting it for solo like usage, because you don't really earn too much mana and it has a long cooldown. I would much rather have see like Steam Boots and a bottle, something like that, and go for a Hellflower or an Nullstone, much rather than having having a Ring of Sorcery.
Right. Interesting. I'm just curious, because the first time I saw it, I was like, Ring of Sorcery on Monkey King. What is this? And the Rune Cleaver comment, I was just sort of making a comparison as far as farming tools. You know, you get a Rune Cleaver on Mage Bane, whereas for Monkey King, you could make a case that a Ring of Sorcery has sort of the same effect as far as buffing up your farm. But interesting. Maybe when we do Carry 102 in a couple months, we'll look at a Monkey King replay. That wasn't one that I had pictured in my mind. So we're getting pretty close to moving into the replay section here, because that's really where things get super interesting. Before we do that, I just have a couple of questions that I want both of us to kind of keep on the back burner while we're looking at these replays and try and answer these questions just periodically. And of course, I'll bring it up as we go along. But I think the biggest problem that people have, as far as, you know, in the 1600, we see someone that's like, all right, I saw Mage Bane destroy, so I saw Era get 500 GPM on Mage Bane and carry this game last night on Honcast. I want to try it. Where's the pitfall that player is falling into? If he loses that game, well, what happened? Was it his fault? Did he carry to the fullest of his potential? And that's sort of the takeaway we want to have from this hour and a half session here, as far as cramming in some knowledge. So I think the biggest problem is, one, how do you decide when to team fight and when to farm, especially in that early game? You know, let's say you're level 6 and they're pub training already, they're trying to push your mid tower. Do you help defend, maybe try and pick up a kill or two, or do you just sit in your lane and free farm? I think that's one of the problems that people have, and that second big problem is in team fights, who do I focus? Do I try and pick off those squishy supports at the very beginning to get the numbers advantage, or do I go for their carry, try to shut down their main damage dealer before the fight starts? That kind of on-the-fly decision-making, I think, is really what stumps people. So I guess, do you have any comments about either of those, how to tackle either of those problems in sort of a general context?
Well, it's really hard to say, like, if you're not in the game yourself, but Now, with your first example, if they're pub training and they're pushing your mid and you're level 6, um, it it depends. If you see that they are diving and heroes are dropping low, like they have a monarch or whatever that is really low HP, their carry or main hero is dropping low as well, then you can decide to TP. Then you will actually earn more money than you would than you would lose from the TP and the farm that you would lose from the creeps. But if they are not too low and you will just TPN and just stand there like a moron, then it's just not worth it. Time is money, even in Han, especially on a hero like Mage Bane.
Yeah. I see. So, I guess kind of the rule of thumb is if you can identify an opportunity to pick up a kill or see that your team's winning and you can get that assist gold, maybe push a tower when the fight's done, it's worth it. But if you're kind of not sure and it's that sort of just right away knee-jerk, oh my gosh, I have to go help my team defend, and then you stand around and they don't push, it's like, well, crap. Now I'm stuck here around my 5 teammates, I can't farm, and I just wasted a port and all that time running around. So it's a pretty good rule of thumb. As far as team fights, what do you think? I mean, generally speaking, of course, this is total just general, sort of nonsense until we look at it in a game, but who do you try to focus in a team fight? Is it usually more of a try and pick off Glacius in the beginning of the fight, or is it more of maybe positioning based?
It's all about knowing yourself which hero you will actually be able to stand and attack or use spells on. If you're in this case Mage Bane, who you can blink on and attack without getting CC'd or locked down, and actually not doing anything. So you have to wait first and see which spells are they using, or which heroes, which hero is getting stunned, which hero is getting locked down, and then from that you can tell, like, okay, this case Andrew stuns the Glacius. Then you can just jump in and kill the Glacius like easily because he's pretty low on HP and he's stunned and he can't really do much.
Yeah.
But if they save their stuns, let's say if they have a Tundra and the ulti is ready, just waiting for you to jump in, then you should chill a bit. Just chill around, jump into the back, try finding someone that's standing alone, and then when you see Tundra use that ultimate, you can jump in and just go wild. Focus their main hero.
Gotcha. And I think that's a really good way to think about it. Sort of converse to that your sort of basic instincts is like, oh, this is the perfect time. It's more based around their abilities. Well, can they lock me down? That's sort of the stop and think, okay, did Tundra use his ultimate yet? Yes? Okay, now I'm going to have this window of time where I have the upper hand over him. Has he used it yet? No. If I jump in, he's just going to avalanche my face, even if I have a shrunken head. So, very good. I think those are pretty good rules of thumb, and of course we'll see those demonstrated here in the upcoming replays. The one last thing I want to just touch on before we talk about or actually look at replays here, I'm going to use the word benchmarks a lot as far as when we look at things in these replays. And I say that because, at least for me, it really helps to have a number. I remember back when I was a noob, when Zephyr was overpowered, and I just played Zephyr. I have a sub-account with like 30% Zephyr. It's pretty fun. He's a fun hero. I like him. He's fun to kill people with his ult and gust and all that stuff. I had in my mind a time, like, okay, if I can get my Ghost Marchers, my Vanguard, or Helm of the Black Legion rather, and my Mock of Brilliance by the 22-minute mark, I'm farming damn well. Like, I have a benchmark for my mock of how fast that is, given the items I already have. So I want to try and get some of those benchmarks here as well. Maybe for example, Mage Bane, timing I should have my Ruined Cleaver by, and know that I'm on par to have a really good game, or to know that I'm behind. Kind of look at those benchmarks, mostly for GPM is where I have it marked down and how that translates to items. So again, just stuff to kind of keep on the back burner. Again, want to try to have a takeaway. So, Mr. Era, unless you have any additional comments here, I'd like to move into our first game of Mage Bane.
Let's do so, my friend.
All right, so I have the replay loaded, and I want to start at just about the 2:30 mark, if that works for you. And
just getting into the game right now.
Alrighty, so let me know when you're ready. So, like I said, guys, we do have 3 replays coming up. We're going to be looking at Mage Bane first, followed by Puppet Master, and then we're going to finally follow it up with Valkyrie. So 3 interesting replays. Like I said, we're going to look at snippets from each replay and just sort of talk about what's going on, talk about the decision-making, the item choices, and we'll get to observe Era in his true environment here, farming away on all 3 heroes. So pretty much what I'm going to do is just lock the camera on you, Era, and we'll watch it. I'm planning on going ×1. Like I said, we'll jump around a little bit. I have some time windows jotted down, and we'll just go for it. Again, Let's try and extrapolate as much information as possible. Why is Era doing the things that he's doing?
Okay, well, I'm in the game. Which time did you mention in time?
2 minutes, 30 seconds on the in-game timer.
The in-game timer, okay, I'm getting there.
Yes, sir. Alright, so let's go ahead and... Ooh. There we go. Wrong preset. Alrighty. I'm going to pull up my notes here. So, and also, I do have chat open, guys. It's hard for me to look at my notes and chat and listen to Era all at the same time, but I will do my best to address questions that you guys have. If we have some time at the end, we can do a little bit of a Q&A, depending on how long this stuff takes. We're doing pretty well on time already, so I'm pretty proud of us already. So, you all ready to go, good sir?
Yes, I'm good to go.
Alrighty, so let's go ahead and press play in 3, 2, 1, go. So I don't recall what this game is from, which tournament, what have you. That's kind of irrelevant. I just sort of went through recent game history. I tried to find games as recent as possible, not necessarily the best Magebane showing ever. I mean, this is a fine game, but I think actually in a couple of these games, Fnatic Recall ended up losing. So like I said, the game itself is really not that meaningful, more the actions in the particular games. So you're playing against BXF here, and in the very early laning phase. So we're just about 3 minutes in, still very even, no bloodlust, nothing too crazy. It looks like a pretty straightforward game. You're playing with your good buddy Nova, Glacius lane partner. So first thing I want to ask about is the starting items. You went Shield, Hatchet, and a set of Tangos, so your Runes of Blight. Is that just kind of your standard opening on Magebane? And if so, why Runes of Blight over a health potion?
Well, I would not say standard, but it's usually the most optimal versus at least one ranged hero. I would change my item build to more regen and skip the hatchet if there actually was 2 ranged heroes and go for Iron Shield. But the hatchet, of course, is required for that little bit of bonus damage. It's Magebane. It's pretty bad on that base damage that he has, but yeah, that's pretty much the reason why. And trees instead of a potion is because you, as soon as you lose HP, you would much rather be able to be at a high amount of HP, much rather than losing a big amount of HP and then having to stay back for those 10 seconds they have to regen up with a potion.
So that trade-off is, I mean, obviously the Tangos don't heal as much as a potion. A potion heals 400, and the set of 3 Runes of Blight heals for, I think it's 90 apiece, so whatever that comes out to, 270. So it is less healing, but you may afford in that additional farming time when you're not sitting out using the potion.
Yeah, and you can actually take some rest during that time because you're regening really quickly, and you don't really have to be afraid as much as you have to be when you have a potion, because then you can just get pushed back and have a time where you don't get any farm at all.
Yeah, definitely right. Sorry, I'm just removing something here. Okay, so yeah, we're all set. Very good. No, so that makes pretty good sense. Also, as far as lane partner with Magebane, is it pretty normal for you guys to do like a Glacius Magebane combination? I mean, obviously he's a hero that benefits from a babysitter, but is there any hero that really pairs well with Magebane early on? Any combos that you're particularly afraid of with Magebane in the early phases?
Any 600 ranged hero with a slow... I would much rather have a slow than a stun, because you have to chase some with Magebane, and you deal a really huge amount of damage with your mana burn. That's why he's strong in the laning phase. Okay. People see him as weak, but that's because they don't count his mana burn effect, and it's actually the magic armor that he gives when he blinks and stuff like that. But yeah, with the Glacius, he's able to chase as well as you can just be stationary and out attack while they're frozen, and then you just run after and just burn their mana and deal a lot of HP while they're slowed. So a Monarch or a Glacius would be the best lane partners, in my opinion. So
how about an Andromeda? Does she sort of fit into that as well, or is that lack of slow?
The thing with Andromeda is that she has too short range. Like, she can't really help Magebane during the laning phase. Of course, she's good at putting up kills, but if you can't put up some kills, you will lose way more than you would earn, because she can't stand there and help you get your last hits.
Yeah, very true. We see you picked up a kill here. One of the things that happened quite a few minutes ago, but I wanted to just touch on, as far as a Bloodlust kill, you know, we saw Nova come up, you guys set up a really good kill, and when I was watching this replay initially, it looked like they were sort of considering trying to give you that last hit, and they were just like, no, fuck it, he's not close enough. Tempest just goes ahead and takes that Bloodlust kill. How do you guys draw the line for that? I mean, are you always, or Glacius grabs it rather, are you guys sort of always trying to give it to the carry if possible? I mean, how much of a risk are you willing to take to give your carry that bloodlust? Is risk being that player getting away, of course.
In Fnatic, we actually much rather have the early kills on the support, so they are able to buy the flying courier, get those wards, get those boots ASAP, because the carry will nevertheless get the farm on the lane.
Right.
She will always get the creep farm, so the early kills doesn't really matter too much if your supports actually are able to pull out really big items in the start for that. So I would much rather have seen first blood on Glacius and stuff like that.
Interesting. So that actually isn't a mistake or anything. That is basically intentional, trying to allow your supports to get a little bit of farm at least through the way of that bloodlust. So that's interesting. I actually did not know that. Is that kind of normal across most teams, or is that something somewhat unique to Fnatic as far as that mindset?
I think most of the teams actually think about it the same way as I put it out, but while they're in the game, they're just like, Magebane is our only chance late game. He needs the skills, he needs that. And then it just comes down to them letting Magebane take the last hits. But that's when the carry himself has to say, chill bros, I got this nevertheless. Grab some kills, it's okay.
I see. Yeah, and that's a good thing to point out as well. Talking about it and then when you're in the moment are definitely two very different situations, so a good thing to differentiate between. In this game here, of course, just glancing at your items, you did grab that life tube first, which we're going to talk about in a second. As far as benchmarks are concerned, in this game you hit 300 GPM at 7 minutes. At that point, I don't think you really dip below. Right now you're at about 302, so at least maintaining that 300 GPM. Is that really good for this stage in the game? Is that pretty good? Is that kind of expected? How are you feeling about the numbers, at least, at this point in the match?
It actually is really good, especially since we had some kills on the lane, so my XP, I'm already level 6, for example, so it's really good. And then, well, there's a reason why we picked Magebane this game. It's because we sort of have a tri-lane top with the Tempest in the jungle. I will have farm on that lane, and that's why we were so sure of picking him. And then with a 300 GPM farm just 7 minutes in, I will be able to snowball and just pick up as further the game goes.
As a general rule of thumb, I mean, what's sort of like the lowest GPM you would be happy with here in a situation similar to this on Magebane? Maybe, with Tempest in the jungle, sure, but having Glacius in a lane like this, I mean, would you be satisfied with 250 right now? Would even 200 be okay? Where's sort of that cutoff point, I guess?
With this lane setup, I would be really disappointed if I weren't at 300 GPM, to be honest.
Okay, well, that's good. That kind of makes sense. So furthering that, of course, talking about items here, you did opt to go for your steam boots before doing anything else with this life tube rather. What are your thoughts about opening items for Magebane? I mean, are you a kind of steam boots straight into Helm of the Black Legion kind of guy? Do you try to pick up that rune cleaver any chance you get? Talk to us about item choices here with Magebane a bit.
It's always situational, and a lot of that depends on your team, actually. For example, this game we had Bloodlust, we have a level 8 Tempest, our Glacius is doing well, already having its boots, already courier, wards, and whatnot set up, lane wards and stuff. But then, if we would have been at a disadvantage, and they would have had the Bloodlust at this top lane, Balfgor maybe level 7, Demented boots, and stuff like that, then I actually would have gone for Helm of the Black Legion this game.
Okay.
Because I wouldn't have been able to put up too much farm on my lane.
Right.
And then they have a Parasite, of course, and that's the reason why I pick up Steam Boots as early as I do, because I don't want to get killed by the Parasite this early in the game.
I see. So if you guys are, you're in a very comfortable lane, they don't have someone like a Parasite who's super boosty, will you even occasionally go for a Rune Cleaver on red boots? Is that ever even a possibility, or is that just too risky?
Not if they have a Parasite that already is level 9. No, I would not. It's just too risky.
Yeah, Parasite's definitely having a good game. For sure, sitting 4-0 now, he is, wow, pretty scary. Of course, guys, we are kind of tunnel visioning on Magebane again. The game itself is a little bit irrelevant. We're just looking at the context of Magebane and sort of how we can mimic some of the stuff that era here does. So, like I said, we're kind of purposefully missing all of that other action and just televisioning on good old Magus Magebane here. So, very interesting. I actually had another question that just eluded me. Yeah, so as far as item builds are concerned after that, what are you kind of thinking in this game? Oh, sorry. Before we get too far, we were talking about Parasite being kind of a counter to Magebane, of course, with that silence, a lot of burst damage. What about Fade against Magebane? Do you find Fade to be an effective counter against this hero?
Fade is a somewhat good counter because she burns out Magebane's mana pool and then he can't escape.
Mm-hmm.
But there's many heroes that can kill Magebane while he's stunned. Mm-hmm. You don't really always have to mana burn him to be able to kill him. Like, Fade is a bit overrated against Magebane, I'd say, because Fade needs a really good early game to be able to be that hero that can just go around and pick off heroes alone.
Right.
Yeah.
So who, in lieu of Fade, I mean, who else would you say is an effective counter to Magebane? I mean, are some of the more old school heroes, as I would put them, good counters? I mean, your Puppet Master, of course, stops him from blinking. Defiler with that huge AoE silence. What are some other heroes that pose a good counter to Magebane?
A good counter to Magebane? Well, this game, you already have one. Parasite. Good burst, silence, stuff like that. And then you have bubbles, silence, ulti that holds you in position. Moraxis even, like if he just gets his stun, he has so much burst. There's many heroes just like that can just kill you from just having those spells out already up in there.
Yeah, so it's not only about burning the mana, like you said, just stunning him, locking him down, and having the burst to just, prevent him from really reacting. So at this point, I would like to pause here. Go ahead and skip ahead. If you want to go to that little replay control where you can type in those numbers, if you want to go to 3150.
Okay. 3150.
Yes, let's see here. So it should be about 2008 on your replay counter once you get there.
Yep.
So one of the things, as I mentioned before, that people have the most difficult time deciphering, I think, is when to farm and when to team fight. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I looked at a lot of replays this morning, and exactly what's about to happen is eluding me, so it will be a little bit of a learning experience for both of us. But that is sort of the overtone I want to talk about here. I think you're going to start pushing and then sort of port back in an interesting timing for this team fight. So let's go ahead and press play in 3, 2, 1, go. Like I said, we're at that 20-minute mark, and just glance at your inventory here. We're 20 minutes in. You've now finished your Rune Cleaver, and you've got about 400 gold in the bank, and you're pushing that mid lane. So what do you think as far as item choices here coming up next, now that you have that Rune Cleaver?
Right now, I really want to just keep up getting items just as soon as possible. Something that helps me farm, something that can help me in a team fight, not just to survive, but put out as much damage as possible. So Geometer's Bane is the most optimal thing because of the Firebrand, the mobility and the attack speed, and the agility gain. You will farm much faster, and because of the illusions, you will of course be able to burn more mana, and with that, your ulti just puts out way more damage.
So is it pretty much Rune Cleaver, Geometer's Bane? Do you ever veer from that build order?
Well, it's not always, but I would say it's the most optimal thing.
I see. I mean, that makes sense. Like you said, it's not set in stone, but it is, by sort of general standards, a very, very good, very, very good item combo as well. So, yeah, there's still, this action hasn't come up quite yet, so we'll just sort of we'll follow Magebane here for another minute or two, continue talking about item choices here. Later game item choices. Talk to me about Wingbow a little bit, because that's an item that I think is a bit underrated, given that we never see it. You're one of the few people that will even run it occasionally. Is it a worthwhile item, I guess, in general, and then on top of that, on Magebane?
I think Wingbow is the best item in the game on a carry, personally, because of the attack speed and the evasion. It's just survivability and aggression in the same item. It's just awesome. But yeah, on Magebane you have so much attack speed already. You will of course already have a Geometer's Bane before you get the Wingbow on Magebane, at least in my world. So you will already have that pretty decent survivability, and then with Wingbow you will almost be unkillable for right-clicking heroes on the other team, because you would just be able to put out such a huge amount of damage before they would.
Right.
And yeah, the attack speed gains. Yeah, this is overall a really good item.
Overall, just everything about it is just favorable for Mage Bane. So
Yeah.
we're at this. Oh yeah, sorry. We are at this point now though, where I was talking about you're in the mid pushing that tier 2 tower, while the rest of BXF here is knocking on your front door, that bottom lane taking a lot of pressure. So you're actually not going to port back right away. We see your team is sort of huddled up in the base. The tower falls. They're attacking the barracks, and you're still just chipping away at the tower. And you're actually going to stay until the tower falls, secure the last hit, and then port back right away. So I guess the real question here is all about that timing. Of course, you do port back. You guys pose a very nice defense just in the nick of time. I'm not sure if you pick up a kill here or not, but you certainly do a lot of damage. You do finish off Balfagor and Demented Shaman, going to meet the same fate. So you guys clean this up pretty damn well. It ends up being a 1-for-4 exchange. At first glance, I saw it, I'm just like, uh-oh, 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 and then you totally turn it around, you don't even lose barracks. So, I mean, we can sort of look at that fight in slow motion if you think that'll help, but just talk to me about that decision-making. I mean, did you know right then that you definitely had enough time to finish off that tower and then port back? Was that a little bit of a gamble? What's going through your head when something like this is going on?
Well, when I started pushing mid, of course, I told the team that, guys, I'm pushing mid, don't do anything stupid, don't go out and die. They're like, okay, then we chill a bit. And then, you know, I see that our tower's dropping, but I also see that their positioning is really good. Like, they have split heroes, Torture standing outside. Tempest can't really get that good ultimate off that we need to be able to capitalize on that team fight. So I stay a bit, take the tower, and then I hear Fly saying, okay, we can go now, it's a perfect ultimate time. Then I'm like, okay, then I finish the tower and I TP in, and then of course she nails the ultimate, get 2-3 heroes, and we just capitalize from that. So it's all about communication and knowing that you will not lose more than you will gain.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of goes back to the point you made earlier on that it's all about that specific time and knowing when, okay, this is the time I can port in, and as soon as I get there, I can do a hell of a lot of damage, either pick up a kill or assist in a kill, instead of just porting in too early and then kind of running around hoping you're going to be able to get a kill and ending up scaring them away. So I think that's a really good point, that it's about the communication, and in that situation, you knew you had the time to take the tower. So obviously, a super cost-effective exchange for you. You got a tower kill, picked up a double tap, and now, I mean, your farm is just out of control. You're at 450 GPM. You know, you've got 2,400 in the bank, a Whispering Helm. I guess before we end this replay, because that's all I have before we move on, talk to me about this Whispering Helm pickup a little bit, because we are going to see Puppet Master next, and of course that is an item we'll spend a lot of time talking about, so not too frequently we see it on Mage Bane, though.
Well, I was just going to say, actually, that I almost forgot about it, but yeah, Whispering Helm is an item you go where you know that it's going to be a lot of farming, but at the same time you have to move around like a lot, so, and there's going to be a lot of team fights, because you always have to be rather high on HP, and when you know that you're gonna stand and right click in the fights, it's gonna be battles, you're not gonna just jump in and then jump out to nail the last hits. You have to stand and fight. For example, Maraxis, he comes in, I have to be able to stand and fight and just and not just drop and then not be able to do anything in the team fight. I would actually have to just be there and be the annoying factor I can be. That's why Whispering Helm this game.
Alright, well that makes perfect sense, a very good way to explain it. Unless there's anything that we missed, I'm ready to move on to our second replay here.
Yeah, let's do so.
Alright, let's do it. So, of course, that was Mage Bane, ladies and gentlemen. Pretty slow and skinny, like I said, with 3 different heroes. With the jungling 101 was a little bit easier, because jungling is really, really crucial in those early minutes, and after that it becomes very relative to that game. With carrying, every game is a different story, so I tried to find games that had points that we could illustrate. So again, on that timetable, I want to pack in as much interesting stuff as possible. So coming up next is the Puppet Master game. I will have the match IDs in the description of this episode, so not to worry if you want to check out the replays yourself. They are certainly available for download. So bear with us here for a moment while I look around, because I have so many damn replays in here. Okay. It's interesting that Fntc's in chat, because in this upcoming game, he is actually your lane partner. So this is going to be pretty exciting.
Good old Fntc. Go way back, bruh. Way back.
Good old Fntc. So, yep, just loading in here, of course, taking its sweet old time. We'll start Puppet Master replay at 30 seconds on the in-game timer.
30 seconds, okay.
So we'll start this one nice and early. There is plenty to talk about with Puppet Master.
Oops.
Okey-dokey. All right.
All right, I'm there now.
All right. Okey-doke. Let's see. Here we go. All right. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So if you're ready to start it up here, we'll count it down and get going in 3, 2, 1, go. So before we get too into this replay, guys, I want to mention that this is a very, very strange game. It is by no means a league game. It's a scrim, as you can see from the array of different names here. So it is a little bit unorthodox. The hero picks as well are a little bit strange. Unfortunately, Era hasn't played too many Puppet Master games super recently, at least not on this patch. So I found this one and I was skeptical, but I did pull out a couple of good points. So again, take these games just sort of with a grain of salt. It's more the individual plays that are significant here. So first, I guess, Era, do you remember this game? Can you give us any story before we get into it?
I remember my team sucking ass, but nothing else.
Yeah, I think this is one of those games where in the end you guys don't win, which I don't think we're going to witness the end of here, but indeed not. So you are laning with Pyromancer. We see Fntc here, and you guys set up a very early Bloodlust kill here on the Demented Shaman, so that is good. Era going to be the one to pick up the Bloodlust gold, so of course your farm going to start off with a bang. Obviously, Puppet Master Pyro is not the most standard of lanes. I guess talk to me about how this came about. Of course, Pyro is going to end up supporting you, and it ends up being a pretty powerful lane, so maybe a little viability here. You guys going to try this in the next Fnatic game we see?
Probably not, but it all started. It was an all-pick game, I think, and Fntc was like, I'm gonna play this, press random, and insta-ready. Pyromancer. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna play this, and it's Puppet Master, so... But in the end, it actually works out pretty well, synergizing with the Puppet Show and stun, lots of CC, both range, so it's not too bad, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely. It does end up working out pretty well, like I said, and we're going to spend a lot of time just talking about the Puppet Master item choices and builds. So the first thing I want to point out is your starting items. Of course, 4 minor totems, a Guardian Ring, and then your 2 sets of runes, and then you pick up you finish that Ring of the Teacher, the Scarab, and the Side Shop here once you get the appropriate farm. I noticed through watching several replays, that's kind of your go-to build. That's what you do on Valkyrie more often than not. Is that just a standard starting item with a ranged carry hero, or I guess give us some insight into those choices?
It all depends on where you lane. Like a side lane, it's really important to have that you are able to push. Like in the end, that you have to be able to push fast. That's why a Ring of the Teacher is really great. And with 6 trees, of course, you have lots of reach, and you're always able to stay in the lane, as I stated the last game. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's pretty much why.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It's a very straightforward beginning build. Of course, Ring of the Teacher, a ridiculously powerful item, especially early on. It makes sense. It's a very well-rounded build. Of course, you don't have a hell of a lot of mana regen. And you talked about Puppet Master. There's a reason that he's Intellect, and that reason is because he needs that mana. You know, he needs that mana gain. Do you find yourself needing more mana regen on this hero than you would on a hero like Valkyrie? Is Ring of the Teacher just sufficient for your needs?
Not really, no, because on Puppet Master you will most probably always get an item like a Hellflower or something like that that actually gives you mana regen. And in the start, actually, you have some mana issues with Puppet Master if you use your Puppet Show or Puppet Hold on every cooldown, but it's not that often that it happens, so...
Right. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense as well. So we're going to see another kill here on the Demented Shaman. We see some pretty serious burst potential between the Pyro Puppet lanes. So, like I said, a little bit strange, but still, I mean, pairing Pyro with someone with with a big stun as well as all that burst certainly can be favorable. So I want to talk about benchmarks here. Again, in this game, you're 1-0-1. Of course, that Bloodlust Gold, you're a little bit inflated. So 4.5 minutes in, you've already crossed that 300 GPM mark. What are you thinking in the way of benchmarks for Puppet, kind of in general? We're going to see, unfortunately, Era is going to fall here thanks to, or actually, no, maybe you do survive. Whoa, I got ahead of myself.
This is so weird. We just have to look at this first before we continue.
Okay.
This is so...
What is it? Go for it.
You see now, like, I was trying to hide there, but he throws his shards, like, so randomly that they actually cut the trees to the right. And yeah, I show myself. God, it was so weird. But yeah, anyways, before that happened, I was looking at, okay, I might get an early shroud. I will be able to just be up in the ass of the Dark Lady and just kill her every single time, so she won't be able to outfarm me in any way. But now, when this happened, it kind of stopped me a bit. But of course, I come right back into the lane. And well, as of now, I would say that I'm going for an early Whispering Helm to be able to pick up the early farm and yeah, be able to come into the mid game strong with a shroud,
right?
Or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Before we get too sucked into items, I do want to ask you here, as now that you guys are kind of dominating this lane, how do you decide to build Puppet? We see you're leveling Puppet Show as your primary. At level 3, you were 1-2, and then level 4, you get that first point in Whiplash. Now, this is one of the things when we see Puppet Master, by we, I mean Breaky and I, it seems to be a lot, there seems to be a lot of variance between starting builds with Puppet Master. Some actually go level 1 Whiplash, some go level 1 Puppeteer's Hold, some level 1 Puppet Show. We've seen people level Whiplash as their primary, Puppet Show as their primary. Is it variance based on just every game being different, every situation needing a different one of Puppet Master's skills, or do you have kind of a set build? I guess just sort of shed some light on what seems to be the mystery of building Puppet Master.
Well, the only reason that I personally leveled up Whiplash, I always leveled up 1-1-4 before, when the Whiplash actually gave you damage, a percentual amount of base damage. But now that they removed that and just gave Puppet Master some more starting damage, you don't need to level the Whiplash in the start at all. Instead, you can have a way better killing potential on the lane with the leveling the Puppet Show, as the AoE actually grows when you level it, and the CC time. So yeah, I think it's actually pretty stupid to level up the Whiplash in the start.
Yeah. And also, I mean, it does make it a bit more difficult to maintain that lane control, because it just inevitably starts to push the lane. Is that a factor if you level up Whiplash or get it early, or not really that big of an impact as far as lane control?
Well, before you actually pushed up a lot more, but it didn't really matter too much, because you would most probably see Puppet Master on a solo lane before, just because he had so big role on that solo that he could have like 100 damage to a 60 attack damage bubbles and just be able to dominate, just for examples.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes sense. And like, as I mentioned, I'm sure a lot of it just comes down to situations. That's why we see it so differently. It's just sort of strange, because Puppet Master is a little bit of a rarity on top of that. Just seeing the just array of different builds, I think, is always one of those things that sort of stumped myself and Breaky as far as, well, why is this? What is the best way to roll with Puppet Master? Again, before we get too caught up into items, if you do dual lane with Puppet, because you said a lot of times you will be solo when you're playing Puppet Master, what is a good lane combination in context of the competitive scene? Who would you want to lane with if you're Puppet Master, given that you have to?
Stun?
Is he only a solo hero? Maybe I got too far ahead of myself.
Nah, not after the change to Whiplash. I would much rather have him on a dual lane. Because, yeah, as I said, he was able to just rape, like literally before, with the Whiplash bonus damage. But now, if you have a stun partner, like Pyromancer here, for example, you will always be able to pick up a kill with Puppet Show when it's ready. Of course, 30 seconds cooldown, but... Yeah, you have so much kill potential with the 2 CCs of Puppet Master and the high damage and 600 range.
So, I mean, is this a hero that's like really well paired with Andromeda? Does that stun and damage output with the minus armor as well? I mean, is that...
Yeah, Andromeda is one of the best lane partners with Puppet Master. Just minus armor, as you said, and stun, just perfect. Just perfect for Puppet Master.
Yeah, I mean, Aurora with the scouting and, like, yeah, that minus armor really ups that damage output. So, yeah, it makes perfect sense. And along those same lines, Pyro actually all things considered, isn't the worst pair for Puppet Master. As far as competitive scene, Pyro doesn't scale quite as well as someone like Andro, unfortunately, but I think this at least demonstrates some of that viability that we were just talking about, and we'll see the CC's coming here onto Dark Lady. Uh-oh, that puppet going to be used, and does Dark Lady go down here? No. Demented Shaman coming in the nick of time. So you can see the amount of burst damage, though, getting Dark Lady dangerously low. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about items here. You mentioned Whispering Helm and Shroud, sort of two core items on Puppet Master. How do you decide which one you're going to get first? Or is it just kind of similar with Magebane, where if it's a situation where you're going to have to sit there, right-click auto-attack, you're not worried about burst damage, it's Whispering Helm first? I mean, how do you make that differentiation?
I'd say if you can get a Shroud pre-15, then you should get it first. But the thing with Whispering Helm is that the build-up is really awesome, especially for the laning phase. If you take harass damage, like you get the, what is it called? Helm of the Dominator? No, Helm of the Victim. You get that, and you have regen, you have lots of armor, you're able to stay on the lane, like how long as you want to, instead of getting harassed out and just having to back to base, fairy potions, waste gold on that, those kind of things. But if you're just free farming, you have a big level advantage, you might as well go for the Shroud if you can get it pre-15 and just roam around the map.
Very good. So that is a very good benchmark to note down. You know, next time I play Puppet Master, I'll remember that. Can I get this Shroud by the 15-minute mark? Those are the kinds of takeaways that we can actually remember and go, oh, okay, that's a pretty good rule of thumb. I can get behind that. I can feel you there. So after that, I guess, well, maybe we can talk about that here in a moment. In this game, as we won't see, because we are going to skip ahead, this is actually a really long game, a pretty long game at least, a good 40 or 50 minutes. So we're going to skip ahead here in just a moment or two. I did glance through most of this replay, though, and you actually spend most of the time in this match picking up solo kills. If you look at the final stats at the end of this game, you end like 8-2 or 8-3 or something, and most of those kills are just straight-up 1v1 situations. You bump into somebody in the jungle, or you find Dark Lady, drop your full rotation, and it's more than they could handle. Is that a pretty standard way to play Puppet Master? I mean, do you play him sort of like you would a Magebane, where you're just going to sit back and farm as much as possible and kind of avoid fighting unless it's a perfect situation to pick up a kill? Is he just a solo roaming ganker, or does he flourish in team fights? I mean, I guess my point is, in this whole long-winded question, is he better off picking up those solo kills, or does he have viability in early team fights?
The thing with Puppet Master is that he has a really long cooldown on his ultimate. I would say as much as long as Swiftblade's, actually. And both Swiftblade and Puppet Master really alike with that, because when Puppet Master has cooldown on his ultimate, you are better off farming, because you won't really have solo kill potential. Maybe with a teammate you will be able to pick up a kill, but you would much rather have a solo kill on Puppet because of the XP you would get, and if you have level advantage, you will just be able to be the more scary hero late game. And then of course you have farm as well with those solo kills, but with those solo kills you are able to snowball way faster.
I see. Kind of, you know, the analogy that comes to mind are those 2-minute mages back from good old vanilla World of Warcraft. Pop the trinkets, POM Pyro, pick up a kill, then go hide for 2 minutes waiting for your cooldowns to come back.
Exactly.
It's alright, good. That's a fair analogy. Alright, very good. I can sleep well tonight knowing that I made a good Honda World of Warcraft reference. So, no, I mean, that's a good thing to point out, though, is Puppet Master is very positioning based, especially before you get those core items. As we see here, it looks like you may get taken out, although your team is going to come support you. So perhaps not. Fntc's got your back, bro. Going to throw that stun.
As always.
Yeah, as always. It looks like you will survive this bout of aggression here. But yeah, positioning with Puppet Master particularly important, because he's not like a Magebane, obviously. He doesn't have a really super easy escape mechanism, so that's always something to keep in mind. And that's one of the things we're going to look up in the upcoming team fight. And I think after this little bout of action here around the 14-minute mark, we can go ahead and pause and move forward. Hopefully, I'm hoping that you pick up a kill here. This is, no, maybe not. Actually, it's gonna
really weird scrimmage.
Here. This is a really weird game, like we said.
Yeah.
It's kind of a strange. So, all right, let's go ahead and pause here and hop forward. I believe I have the times logged right here. So in that little replay control box, we'll go to 44:08.
44.
So let's see here.
08. Okay, I'm there.
All right, very good. So we'll leave it paused for a second and observe what's going on. So like I said, it's a pretty long replay. We jumped ahead quite a bit. Obviously, we're 41 minutes in now, up from 14. So a lot has changed. In the context of the game, isn't that relevant as beyond anything just to try and explain why Era's doing the things that he's doing, sitting 8, 4, and 5, as I mentioned, most of that coming from solo kills that you picked up across the map just over the past half hour. So you have finished those 2 core items, the Assassin Shroud as well as the Shrunken Head. You also have, Whispering Helm, and you've also finished your Shrunken Head, still holding on to that power supply, of course. So your farm's looking pretty good. You know, you're pretty tricked out. Looking at the experience here, looking at the levels, you're in good shape. You're one of the highest levels in the game, actually leading the way in XP per minute. GPM just below 400, so you're doing pretty well. I mean, at this point, just glancing at the numbers, I mean, are you feeling okay about where you are in the game?
Well, me personally, yeah. Team-wise, no, definitely not.
Yeah, the team is, definitely behind by quite a bit. Oh, man. Well, we'll ignore that here. So I do want to look at this team fight. We can watch it in normal motion here. So we'll go ahead and press play in 3, 2, 1, go. And what I want to look at in this team fight is positioning. I think the positioning is really key. Of course, you do get the buffs from Revenant here. You get your Defile and your Essence Shroud. Magnus hops in and just completely annihilates your good buddy Revenant. Luckily, he gave you some of those lovely buffs. You're just going to sit back and do quite a bit of damage here, chipping away at Valkyrie. Then Tundra comes in, and he takes a pretty good bit of damage as well as he gets dropped like he's hot. And you actually just kind of back up. You're like, you know what, I'm going to head back to the well, and then you end up going back in for more. This whole time, very important to note, not how passively you're playing, but just how defensive your positioning is. Not overcommitting, playing very patiently. Going to save that Shrunken Head, finally use it, and look, dropping that rotation on Dark Lady, I mean, she melts in a matter of seconds. Valkyrie going to be dangerously low, and then you're going to kind of chase them out and follow. So, amidst my little bit of commentary there in that fight, talk to us kind of about the decision-making in that fight. Anything I might have missed, or maybe emphasize something that I touched on that was particularly important?
Well, the thing is, when you have a Shrunken Head and you versus a Sheepstick and a Tundra, you don't, or well, rather just Tundra, you would not want to use the Shrunken and then get ulted by Tundra, because that's a full duration that could get wasted. And that's really not what you want to do. You want to have full use of those 10 seconds where you can actually just move around and right-click and use your spells as much as you can. So that's why I played so patiently in the start. Like, I didn't click my Shrunken, I just waited for both the Sheepstick and the Tundra ulti to come out before I actually moved in and decided to drop the TDL. Because if I would have just ran in, I would have gotten Tundra ulti and then just right-clicked to death by that Dark Lady.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense why you say that Shrunken Head, and obviously it worked very well. Valkyrie unfortunately ends up getting away with very low health thanks to the Demented Shaman support, and actually a really nice stun for Magnus, who comes in and catches all 3 of you in a line. So it was a really nice play from Magnus there, Ziff Farmer. But yeah, I mean, that positioning, I think, is it safe to say that patience on Puppet Master is particularly important? I mean, it's important on a lot of heroes, but for him, in a team fight like that, it's so important not to overcommit and get picked off early. Is that sort of the key to Puppet Master's success in this stage of a game, kind of like this?
Yeah, like if you look at our lineup, I'm the only hero with pretty much, on team that can actually do something, just like deal a lot of damage by right-click and just stand there. As you see, if you click on Scout items, he doesn't have a Shrunken, Dodge Repulsor, 5-10-2. Not really gonna do much. So yeah, I'm the saving grace of the team, so I have to position myself well and not get picked off and out of the team fight, because then there's not much hope for my team right here.
Gotcha. Makes perfect sense. It seems to be my closing line here in all these games. So that's all I have for this replay. Like I said, it was really kind of a strange game, and I was a little bit biased as far as picking replays, because I really wanted a Puppet Master game, because I like Puppet Master. We don't see him enough. You're one of the only people that's been running him. So I was desperate to find one, and this was one of the first ones I stumbled on that wasn't too old. So I guess my apologies for picking sort of a strange game, but I think a lot of the points about Puppet Master in general are applicable across the board. Of course, that 15-minute Shroud benchmark, I think, the most valuable takeaway for Puppet Master. Era, any closing words for Puppet Master before we move on?
Not really, no. But maybe, as you've seen that fight, though, that I used the puppet first, and then decided to taunt Dark Lady to auto-attack it herself, if you saw that.
Yep.
That's one thing that you can use on Puppet because the hero that is right-clicking the Puppet herself won't be able to kill it. And the Puppet actually can take more damage than it actually has in HP. So if it is at 1 HP and the hero is still right-clicking it, it will still deal the damage that the hero is dealing to the Puppet. One important thing to remember is you can do so much burst damage with Puppet Master.
Right. Yeah, and that is a really good thing to point out. As we can see, the Voodoo Puppet takes 180% damage. So if it has 1 hit point left, then a Pyromancer ults it. All of that extra damage that spills over is also applied. It doesn't cut off at the max health of the Voodoo Puppet. So a lot of potential there. If you can time all those abilities right, I mean, you can do an absurd amount of burst damage. So absolutely right. Before we move on to our last replay, I just want to ask you, Harkon's Blade, one of the items that I really like. Apparently I talk about too much. You know, somebody actually sent me an email explaining how Harkon's Blade works, because I talked about it so much he thought I was confused about how it worked, thinking that it was another item or something. What do you think about Harkon's Blade? I guess, first of all, I know Puppet Master is a hero that it works on. What do you think about that item, especially in the context of good old Puppet?
The thing is that Harkon's Blade is not really the most optimal carry item, I'd say, because it doesn't... the only thing it gives is damage, and damage that it gets switched over to magical. And these days you would most often see Shrunken Heads, Barrier Idols, and Shaman's Headdress on those tanky heroes, but most often Shrunken Heads on carry heroes, and that's when a Harkon's Blade is completely wasted, actually. So that's why it's a really, really situational item. Really situational item. But on Puppet, of course, it's so good because, of course, the ulti is magical damage, and that combined is just devastating.
Gotcha. Very, very well said. I think that sums up Harkon's Blade pretty well. Really, it was just a joke gone awry where I brought it up in one game, and I thought it might be applicable. And it was a weird situation where there was a Forsaken Archer carrying who was really farmed, who ended up getting a Frostwolf Skull, and the other team was like tank meta to the max, and they all had like 30 armor. And I suggested that a Harkon's Blade could be a potential solution, even though it's weird because with all that armor, you know, mitigates all of her physical damage. And of course, everyone just made fun of me because, well, why would a Forsaken Archer ever get a Harkon's Blade? Don't you know it takes 75 magic or 75 mana per auto attack? Forsaken Archer's mana pool would never be able to do that, and it was upsetting. The guy's email was nice, his heart was in the right place, but alas, I actually do know how Harkon's Blade works. Just one of those things. I don't know. I mean, have you ever considered getting a Harkon's on Forsaken Archer? Am I that far out there, or is...
well, I would. If the situation was nice, but it's like if the other team only has armor, and I see that they don't have any they don't have any Shrunken Heads, they don't have Shaman's Headdresses or anything like that, and the only way of me being able to put out as much damage as I want to is a Harkon's Blade, then I would, but only if I'm sure that I will be able to auto-attack without having any problems in the team fights.
Gotcha. Makes perfect sense with all the other things that we've been talking about, kind of along the same lines. So, if you're ready, we can move into the last replay. We're doing pretty well on time. We've been going about an hour and 15, so we'll kind of speed through the Valk replay a little bit. So, should be all set. Do you have it loaded up? Do you have...
Yep, I'm good to go.
Ready to go. All right, I'm at the 2-minute in-game timer. Sorry, I probably should have mentioned that before.
Getting there?
Yeah. So before we start this replay, I just want to say that this is the replay, I saved the best for the last. The replay itself isn't as good, but I find Valkyrie really interesting because a lot of the stuff we've been talking about is hard carries, applies to heroes we don't see as often now. Magebane being one of them, Dark Lady, the one that I keep overusing, even Puppet Master, these kind of hard carries that are sort of few and far between. But Valkyrie is a hero we see almost every game. Maybe 85% of the games in the competitive scene, at least, that we've been casting recently with DreamHaunch. She's such a versatile hero and so good. So she's sort of an outlier in this breakdown, which is really kind of ironic because we're looking at kind of outlier heroes in general. So I'm really excited about hearing about Valkyrie. Of course, as you mentioned to me, one of your favorite heroes, a very powerful hero as well. So before we even start the replay, I mean, what is it about Valkyrie that makes her so strong? In your eyes, in a quick, easy sentence, why is she picked 80 to 90% of the games?
As you said, she's a really versatile hero. She has an escape mechanism, she has a stun, and a nuke, and an ultimate that can set up kills, teamfight ulti, or whatever you want to call it. 600 range. Just a hero that you can always count on to just do its role like right. It's the best hero for the roles you would give it. Like you can put it on long lane. She wouldn't die too much because of her survivability with a leap. And you can put it as a farmer because she has so much mobility and so much just nuke mobility and just overall really nice build-up hero.
And I see someone questioning me in chat. How often would you say she's picked? Someone's questioning my numbers of 80 to 90%, which I did just pull out of my ass, but that feels... I mean, we see Valkyrie a lot. It's pretty rare that Valkyrie isn't banned or picked.
Well, you're actually pretty right there, though. 80-90%, maybe. I'm talking
maybe like pretty competitive games. Whatever 1800 plus, whatever you want to coin it. Teams.
Well, she is always picked. To be honest, like if she's on the board, she would most likely be picked.
Yeah.
Because as I said, she's just so stable. Just a stable hero.
Yeah, that's a really good word to describe Valkyrie, I think. Stable. Consistent as well. Last thing before we start the replay, would you label her a hard carry, semi-carry, or again, we talked about those names. I guess in certain situations she has the power to become a hard carry?
Yeah, once again, if she gets the early farm she needs to be able to become a hard carry, let's say starts off just as good as the Mage Bane game I had, 300 GPM, 7 minutes in, then she can definitely be the hard carry a team would need in the late game. But if she only has a decent early game, let's say 250 GPM, 7 minutes in, she would have the factor of a semi-carry, just be there, put out a decent amount of damage, but not be anything outstanding, so to say.
Gotcha. There we go with those benchmarks again, those numbers that give us a little bit more meaning, at least when we're playing. So we're at the 2-minute mark. Let's go ahead and press play, get into this particular game here in 3, 2, 1, go. So again, as I've said several times, we'll just read here, the game itself is somewhat meaningless. We're not going to look at the other plays, the other players, the bloodlust kills, what have you. We're just going to focus on Valkyrie here and try and figure out what Era's doing and why he's doing it. So we did miss the bloodlust kill, which happened earlier on, which you did get some assist gold for, so that does help quite a bit. In this situation, you are in a 2v1 lane, so maybe not the best example of a super hard carry Valkyrie, but an example of the hero nonetheless, to hopefully illustrate some of her versatility. So you're up against a Glacius Vindicator lane in the 1v2, sort of a 2v2 scenario. Andromeda is here, though Nova's going to spend a lot of time out of the lane to give you that, for the most part, solo experience and try and set up ganks when he can. So again, looking at your starting items here, the same thing that we talked about, 2 sets of tangos, 4 minor totems, and 1 guardian ring for that Ring of the Teacher. Equally strong on Valkyrie as it was on Puppet in that other game?
Yeah, I would say so, just because, once again, I will be able to push later on. I will split push, and like now Tempest is in the jungle, and me and Fly are of course communicating, and he asked me if I'm going to get an, that ring.
Ring of the Teacher.
Yeah, Ring of the Teacher, and yeah, of course, then I'll get it, because he will be able to come, and then we will be able to push. He gets this fast Ring of Sorcery instead, so yeah, we have that maximum push potential.
Right, yeah, and that's a good thing to point out. Of course, Tempest, I'm going to try to find those opportunities to put pressure on the tower and kind of get this lane pushed up. So Ring of the Teacher, one of the best pushing items in the game, especially early on, and oh god, Ring of the Teacher. It is literally the most cost-effective item in the game. I've said it so many times, can't say it enough time. It is the most cost-effective item, overpowered for the price that you pay for all the stuff that it gives you. So powerful in the laning phase. So, we talked earlier on about ranged carries versus melee carries, and we'll see here, Fly is going to move into the lane, and you guys set up a nice little kill onto Glacius. Unfortunately, you don't get that kill, but as you already mentioned, sort of the plan for Fnatic is to allow those supports to pick up some of the early kills to assist in their warding, as they're not going to be getting any of that early farm. So kind of expected to see Nova or Fly grabbing that last hit. But just to reiterate some of that ranged versus melee carries, Valkyrie with a pretty clear advantage over some of those melee carries as far as teamfights are concerned.
Yeah, well, it all comes down to the 600 range, of course. With an item, let's say Nullfire or Frostwolf Skull, you can just kite the melee hero around, especially if it doesn't have a blink like Mage Bane. It just makes the hero stale in the fight. It just doesn't do it. It doesn't have any effect in the fight. While Valkyrie can just stay on range, be able to put out those nukes when needed, and just keep him out of the fight.
Yeah, definitely. So again, there is an advantage here. So before we move on too far, let me just take a look here at my notes. Sorry about that. I had to actually scroll down. They moved to the next page. So you're sitting around 200 GPM, as you mentioned. This is going to be a little bit more of a sort of semi-carry kind of Valkyrie role. Your farm just isn't quite strong enough to be considered a hard carry, at least not at this stage in the game. Now, this is a very, very long replay. It's over an hour long, I think an hour and 5 minutes, so we will be skipping around, no doubt, in the upcoming moments here. One item I want to ask you about is Alchemist Bones, and how do you decide when to get that on Valkyrie? And I guess this even applies to Puppet Master, because I can recall a game or two, and I've seen Era pick up Alchemist Bones nice and early on. How do you make that distinction? What are the proper situations where Alchemist Bones are particularly powerful?
Well, we can get back to the benchmarks, actually. Okay. For example, if you're having free farm, you will have Steam Boots prior to 4 minutes into the game, and that's 1,450 gold. With that, you would actually be able to get Alchemist Bones 5 minutes in, and you would only get Alchemist Bones if you know that you will be able to free farm for quite some time in the early mid game. There's no other reason why you would get it, and if you have it then prior to 5 minutes in, it is more worth it. It will pay off in the end. But if not, I would much rather get my standard items, so to say, than Alchemist Bones.
Right.
If you for example get it 9-10 minutes in, it's just not worth it.
All right. So they're, like you said, a perfect benchmark for an item like that. It's all about the earlier you get it, and of course it makes sense. You know, the longer you have that item in your inventory, the higher the return on investment is going to be. So it's just a more cost-effective item the earlier on, and that is definitely a good number to keep in the back of our minds. We're going to see Vindicator here in a little bit of trouble. The 3v1, you guys are going to gangbang him, and you're going to be the one to pick up this kill. So it's going to boost your farm a nice little bit, now up to 250 GPM. G's going to rain from the heaven. Someone in chat just brought up an interesting point that I actually have in my notes. In Dota 2, Valkyrie or Priestess of the Moon or Mirana, whatever you want to call her, is a little bit of a reputation as a roamer, a ganker. In maybe Heroes of North, at least your play style in Heroes of North, you spend a lot of time just farming the lane. In this game in particular, you're pretty much just solo farming for a good 15 minutes. Not necessarily free farm, but you're not moving around, you're not using that arrow to try and set up ganks too proactively. Do you ever play Valkyrie as more of a roaming role? Do you think that difference is just difference in the games or sort of play style in general? What do you make of that?
Well, first of all, you can't compare Han to Dota 2, because the game style overall is so different. For example, in Han, you can just sit on the lane forever and just push and be the annoyance that you can be, and it will pay off. In Dota 2, on heroes like Priest of the Moon, then that isn't that kind of carry that you can actually use it to be in Han, because you would much rather have different heroes in Dota. So you would much rather see her just trying to set up kills than taking farm of more important heroes.
Okay. And that's a good way to put it, as far as those differences in the games really having a big impact on how you would play two heroes that are really identical for the most part. Just their sort of ecosystem, if you will, is a lot different. So their usability and applicability is a little bit different. I guess they're not exact ports. There's probably slight variations as far as stat gains and stuff. But yeah, I think you make a good point as well. So with that, given that Valkyrie in Han is a little bit more effective as a carry to pick up that farm, do you ever play her in a roaming role? I mean, are there some games or some situations where you just try to roam around, set up ganks with that arrow, or is that just really not an effective use of this hero?
This early into the game, I would only move around if we had pushed the tower and the lane is pushed up to their second tower, and I'm sure that I won't be able to get as much farm as I want to. That's the only reason why I would actually roam around and trying to put up kills on some other lanes or push a tower.
Okay.
Else it would just not be worth it.
Gotcha. Definitely makes sense here. So let's take a look. So let's go ahead and pause here and hop ahead to 49:29 in our replay control. And we're going to talk about items and some positioning in this team fight here. Just moving right along. So
49-29?
yeah, should be 32-55 on your replay counter.
Yep.
All right, so go ahead and press play in 3, 2, 1, go. And like I said, I looked at a couple replays, so exactly where this is leading does elude me a little bit at first glance here. But I do want to talk about your items. You do have a Geometer's Bane sitting in your inventory and a Sustainer. And you actually started with the Sustainer first and then transitioned into the Geometer's Bane. So talk to us about item choices with Valkyrie a little bit. Why did you go that order, and how did you make that decision from something like a Nullstone or even just an early Shield Breaker? Shield Breaker, Nullstone, and Geometer's Bane are all within 500 gold of each other. So as far as picking up as a starting item, those timings are pretty similar. How do you decide which one to go first?
In this game, I pretty much just needed the regen from Sustainer to be able to always be on a lane and push it up. Like split push, always be able to be there instead of running back to base and wasting time, I'd like to say. So that's why I went Sustainer. I actually wanted to go on Nullstone first, but then I noticed that the enemy team had really high levels and good items on almost all of their heroes except Glacius. And especially since Geometer's Bane can remove both Vindicator ulti and Keeper of the Forest ulti, I decided to make that one first.
Alright, well that definitely makes sense. And this game, I guess, has slightly higher utility than Nullstone, so definitely makes sense. I was just sort of curious, because we do see heroes do. When do you opt for a Shield Breaker? When is that kind of your go-to item to start things off?
I would go for Shield Breaker when the enemy team has rather tanky heroes, but not too much base armor or armor overall. If they do, I would rather go a Lifesteal or slow, to be honest. But if they don't, yeah, that's when I would go Shield Breaker.
Gotcha. All right, that makes perfect sense as well. So coming up here, I believe that you hold. Now, there is like a little fight coming up here pretty quickly, and you do make some executive item choices. Of course, you do have 2,700 gold in the bank, so you're saving up. And in this particular game, you end up going a really interesting route with items, and we'll just do a little spoiler here because I guess I gave myself too much a lead-in time, at least for that item pickup. You end up with a Charged Hammer next, which is really unorthodox. I mean, we see Charged Hammer so little right now. What do you think about that item? Is that just purely situational? Was it just for the lulls here? Or is that a really underrated item? It looks like that Engage I was talking about is going to come up here as Torture is going to fall. But yeah, so what do you think about Charged Hammer?
It is a really situational item. It's when you pretty much have to push up lane. You need some AoE. You have to put on some damage, and that's fast. But also, when the enemy team has lots of armor, it's like a Harkons, but in a different way. Like, since it's AoE damage more, and it doesn't cost you that amount of mana as Harkons does. That's when Charged Hammer is better, and that's why I went for it rather than Shield Breaker. Just because, look at the Kraken, for example. He has a demonic. Keeper of the Forest can give the buff, can give another 12 armor. It's just way too much armor for a Shield Breaker or any other item to be effective for physical damage. So Charged Hammer is the best item choice for damage I can go.
Oh, alright. I mean, again, I've been saying this too much, and that does make sense. I mean, very situational with that magic damage helps mitigate. So, sort of along the same lines as a Harkon, like you said, just less hardcore, less of an investment, and I guess a little bit better for these physical carries. The dogs are going absolutely crazy. I apologize. Someone just came home, I think, so they're, of course, alerting the masses, which is absolutely terrible. Anyhow, I don't know if I jotted down the wrong time here in this timer, but, oh my god. Era, explain some decision-making here so I can mute myself. I mean, what are you guys thinking in the game right now? You're pretty close. I mean, are you feeling pretty good about Valkyrie now? You talked about earlier on, this isn't a game where you're going to be much of a hard carry. You're up at 375 GPM. Are you crossing into that threshold of a hard carry now at this point?
I am, to be honest, I'm not even close to being close to... Oh, well, that sounded weird. Well, I'm not... I can't say I will be able to hard carry this game with only 380 390 GPM. I would at least have to be around 450 GPM to be able to be the hard carry, so to say. And yeah, I'm just not even close to that as it is right now. And yeah, this game is so weird now if you see what's going on.
Yeah, it is definitely getting pretty strange here. And I really hope I didn't load up the wrong replay because I do not see a charged hammer coming quite yet. Maybe I just jotted down the wrong time.
It's coming soon, my friend. It's coming soon.
It's coming soon. Okay, I think I just jotted down the wrong time because I was picturing something much different to come out here in what we're seeing. So you have 5,700 gold. Regardless, the replay is getting pretty interesting, so I guess it's not so bad. You guys end up in kind of a base race, trade bottom racks for mid lane and bottom racks as well, and now you're just going to go straight to the top. So, yeah, 4 seconds. So I'm going to connect with Vindicator. I guess we can kind of cast this here a little bit. The tower's going to fall. Polywog Priest going to come in. This is getting intense. This game is a little bit weirder than I originally bargained for. It looks like Deserto is going to be able to fend this off, and yeah, so they do hold it off. So you guys sort of almost going for the win, maybe overcommitting a little bit, but they do hold it off nonetheless. So the game shall continue, and I'm hoping that Charged Hammer is coming soon because I have to admit now I've lost my bearing, and you can't see me. My hands are up in the air making the I don't know what to do face.
Well, look at my gold, Zyori. I will go for the charged hammer. Trust me.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, like I said, I think I just jotted down the wrong time here, but no problem whatsoever. Oh yeah, the 40-minute mark. I don't know how I have 40 minutes jotted down as like that's the number. I don't know what I was thinking. I really don't. So anyhow, I guess we can skip it. I'm just going to skip ahead here some chunks. There's that charged hammer in the inventory. This is the part where I really wanted to look at. So we did get a little bit. So much for making good time. I'm going to pause here. I'm at 40:08 on the in-game timer.
40:08.
Yes. So my apologies. I must have hit a 2 instead of a 4 or something in my numbers, and that just ruined all of my organization here.
Okay, I'm there.
All right, so 3, 2, 1, let's go. So I want to talk about this team fight a little bit, particularly looking at positioning. As we talked about with Puppet Master, Valkyrie is sort of similar. Now that you have that charged hammer, you can sit back and pump some damage. You will get engaged on. Hani follows up to keep you somewhat safe and sound. Kraken drops his ult and you make it out. Tempest with just a beautiful ultimate sets up for you to sit in the back and do a ton of damage. But a lot of that damage ends up coming out from your positioning. You know, you do get caught, your team follows up to keep you safe, and then you just right-click your way to victory, and nice swap from Nova will secure that kill. So talk to us about that team fight a little bit from your eyes. You know, is positioning as important as I'm sort of making it out to be here? Were you really scared when you got initiated on that you were too far forward?
No, I actually knew that they were going to do what they did there, because I am the key hero. To be honest, like right now, I'm the only damage factor with oh well, Torture does put up some damage as well, but Torture only sitting at 1300 HP, getting caught in Keeper ulti just dies off instantly. But if they do jump for me, as I said, I can just Geos out of that Keeper ulti, out of that Vindicator ulti, and then just leap out and come out just fresh and new, and just pound out those auto attack, and that's why what we said like in Skype there. Like, they will jump on me, so just stay back, wait with Tempest, and then we just reunion and go in. That's pretty much that fight.
Yeah, and that's pretty much exactly what happened. You leaped out to safety, the team followed up, and you were good to go. So I'm going to pause again, and then we're going to jump ahead to sort of the very end of this game that some people in chat do remember. So unfortunately, this little replay control thing, you can't go past 60 minutes. So if you type in 60 and then jump ahead, let's see, and there we go, or 59. It doesn't go over an hour. If the replay counter's over an hour, then the control thing just takes a dump and doesn't know what to do. So on in-game timer, I'm going to jump ahead to 62:45. So we're going to go to the very end of the game and talk about the last minute.
In-game timer 62?
Yeah, in-game timer 62:45. Really far in the future. A very long game, and yeah. We'll finish up here in just a few minutes. Just want to look at this last team fight. So we can go ahead and... Are you have it there? You ready to go?
Wait a second.
Yep.
Alright, I'm good to go.
Alright, so we'll go play in 3, 2, 1, go. on ×1 speed, naturally. So your inventory's changed a little bit here over the past 20 minutes. Of course, that charge hammer. You've now picked up a wing bow. Right after that last team fight we just watched, you do end up splitting those steam boots and picking up post-haste. Why do you end up doing that? First of all, I mean, I guess post-haste you don't really think of as a go-to carry item. Of course, the mobility is really good. Is that pretty standard for you to do at this point in the game, or I guess 45 minutes into a game, or is it just because of that huge amount of gold farm after that team fight? Why that decision to get post-haste?
Post-haste is really strong, particularly in this game, just because our 2 lanes will always be pushed. Or, well, 3 lanes. We have a melee barrack taking top, melee barrack taking mid, and bottom. Those lanes will always be pushed up, and I can always be there and close to their base and be able to backdoor, so to say, whenever. We're just ready to... Yeah, if I'm far too pushed up, I can always go back to the base as well. That's why.
So it's just that perfect utility item here for this game. You guys do kill Kongor. Of course, you are the one that picks up the token here. So no big surprise to see that. So we're just going to sort of observe here. I would have cut this short already, but I do remember the end of this game is really absurd, and you end up sort of being the hero. So we'll give Era his time to shine here. This huge cataclysmic team fight ends up being a little bit of a loss for you guys. You end up losing 3 heroes. You get sheeped and kind of leap out right at the end. And yeah, obviously team fight not going well for Fnatic raid call here. You guys are pretty much out of buybacks. This Hellborn team is going to push up there just on a rampage. We see Pharaoh, Hani, the lone defender here, going to hold things off as long as he can, but they are on the rampage. All the while, though, Mr. Era up in the top lane, making it rain all over Glacius, going to destroy the last Legion barracks. And then you're going to try and push it in here for the win. So I guess, talk to us about what's going on here in some of this decision-making.
Well, my whole team just died, so I'm pretty much alone. I can't fight them 1 versus 5, so I have to do something. And with that, I have to take towers, because then actually some of my teammates are able to... or buy back. I thought, no, they can't, but as you see there, Hani interrupting TPs. As I see TPs, I just react and go leap out. But yeah, I have to do something, and the only thing I can do is TP there with my post-haste, as you just said, I just picked up, and just do what I can, and what I can do is, in this game, win the game.
Yeah, and in the end, you do actually finish off the throne. Just barely, you are like 1 hit from death, 68 hit points left. And you do finally take it out. So it is a very close call, but you do end up being the hero, and we'll see kind of the world tree pretty close as well. So that's a good way to put it, though. I mean, that was really your only option. You couldn't really defend. Hani comes in as the noble defender here, right around that 65th minute. Hani comes in and catches 3 heroes inside of his mummy walls, which is absolutely huge. Unfortunately, he doesn't stop both the ports, but I guess... Or he does stop both the ports, pardon me, which is very well done, and Vindicator ports back. So... you and Hani are both the heroes, I think, in this situation. He definitely sets it up to make it possible. Pretty intense. Ended up being a pretty intense game. So, as we've gone for quite some time, I think that does bring us pretty close to an end. Do you have any closing comments here about Valkyrie before we move on?
Well, I just wanted to say, like, this game, I did not know what actually would happen. So that's why I only picked up a Bulwark instead of upgrading it into a full Demonic or... a Doombringer, because if I actually would have died there with either of those items, I wouldn't have that buyback, and then they would have been able to win the game. But luckily, I survived with like 60 HP, so yeah, nothing else to it.
Yeah, definitely. So, very cool. I do want to take this time to thank you, Era, for making some time to do this with me. I know you dedicate a good 2 hours or so of practice time, so I really do appreciate it. I know you have a busy schedule, so... hopefully you enjoyed yourself. I know I learned a good bit. Hopefully some of those people at home learned a good bit as well. This VOD will be up ASAP, cataloged on Zyori.tv/breakdown. Aaron, do you have any closing remarks, shout-outs, plugs, anything for us before we wrap it up?
Well, I just want to give a shout-out to my dear fans out there that has always been so supportive ever since Dirty Minds back in the day. And, of course, shout-out to my team, Fnatic.
All right. Very good. So, of course, we talked about DreamHan. Fnatic Raid Call already qualified for DreamHack as the returning champs. You guys do not need to worry about the DreamHan qualifiers. So, unfortunately, we haven't seen too much Fnatic Raid Call play recently. But I look forward to it, man. I look forward to seeing you at DreamHack as well. Hopefully, if time allows, perhaps we could grab a beer.
We should do, my friend. We should do.
Awesome. Sounds great. So, thank you for watching, everyone. Like I said, the VOD will be up if you missed anything. The replays are available for download, and those match IDs will be posted. Thank you so much. Of course, the NA, is it day 3 now? I think day 3 here of DreamHon coming up tonight at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so make sure you tune into that at the Honcast channel. I'm Zyori. As always, follow me at all the social networking at Zyori TV on Twitter and Facebook.com/Zyori TV. So I think that is going to do it here for Breakdown number 16. Enjoy yourselves. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to each other. And enjoy this beautiful summer weather. Take care, and we'll see you guys next time.